Chase success with Global.Media.com. Let's celebrate it with or without champagne.
Hello, how you doing, John? We're back here again.
We are. Good evening.
We are. Good evening to you, my friend. How's the weather in your part of the world? It's grey around here.
No idea. I've been in this room, apart from
Really?
breakfast, lunch, a few cups of coffee, glasses of water. Other than that, I've been literally in this room all day. I mean, I have had the blinds open, admittedly, and the light on, so I haven't actually seen much. But that's okay. That's okay. Sometimes there are days like that. You just have to head down and get on with it.
Yeah. No, I've got a roof window, so I can miss when it rains. Yes. If I don't look up, it's kind of like I miss that bit, right?
No, but that's sometimes you just got to get head down and get on with stuff, right? There's no, it's fine. I shall. Tomorrow is a different day. I'm in my office in London. I'm at a conference. I'm walking to the conference from my office. I shall walk back afterwards. Then I'm going out for drinks with some colleagues. So tomorrow will be a completely different day. Anyway.
Yeah.
Enough about the box of today.
Hold on, I've lost your volume somewhere. I've lost your volume. Don't know where. I've lost your volume.
I'm still here.
Okay, you're still there. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Madam Tolu, how are you? Tolu is one of the amazing authors, in my anthology. It was lessons learned from COVID. And of course, also in her own right, she has several books, and also she teaches people how to do public speaking. How are you doing, Tolu? You and I had the same problem, Tolu, in Chiedza's show a couple of days ago. What? Yesterday? Saturday. So we're meant to be doing, talking at an event, at an online event, but I couldn't unmute, Tolu. I couldn't unmute. And so you're one of the other ones who couldn't. When people try to be too smart with tech, John.
No, probably not your best day. But no, public speaking and being on mute, probably not.
Sometimes I just accept these things are not meant to be. So rather than before I beat myself up and run around but I tried what I could. So I got the app, and it still didn't work. So I can accept when things don't happen the way they're meant to happen for me, as God saying it's not meant to be any. Get over it, and it's gone. I'm all right. And there you go. My friends, if you're here, drop us a comment, let us know so we can welcome you properly. Of course, you're welcome to join the studio. The link to join the studio is on the event page. If you want the link sent to your DM directly, just put in the chat here. Don't DM me, because I can't see my DMs from here, right? I'm kind of focused on...
You're having a tech meltdown today, by the sounds of it.
No, this is our normal day. People so people will send me a DM to my LinkedIn and they'll be like, and he's ignoring me. And then but I'm not gonna look until after the event, right? How am I gonna look? Okay. So I have to focus on the chat here and then focus on talking with you, my friend. So
can I make a plug? So you mentioned public speaking, and Tolu, thank you. Good to hear from you. You mentioned public speaking on Thursday. Help for Ukraine has got a dinner now. Everyone here is off the hook because you can't buy tickets anymore. We've had to submit all the best and finals for numbers of attendees, but it's on Thursday, and I will be I'll be kind of introducing 3 speakers. So we've actually got 3 speakers at the event, all giving it's a black tie dinner, and they're all giving a short sort of 10-minute presentation throughout the evening, and I'm going to be introducing people. So public speaking is an interesting thing. I've never done it actually it's not true. I have done it at a dinner, but I've never had to been at an event where there's been 3 public speakers, kind of one between each course, if you like. So that'd be quite interesting to see that. And then off the back of that, we'll see how the event does, because it's raising money for charity. So hopefully it'll be a success.
Are the numbers what you wanted in terms of, so now you say you finalized your numbers? and the
Well,
attendees.
so the rule of thumb at any charitable event is the numbers are never enough, right? Let's be honest. No, we're okay. We're well over 100 people. It's
Excellent.
a 5-star hotel in Mayfair, so it's a beautiful part of London, beautiful, absolutely stunning hotel. And the hotel have been fantastic, the Mayfair Hotel. So really, really good. More people is always good, not just because they're paying for their dinner, but it just makes a nicer atmosphere, a bit more of a buzz. It makes the auction that we've got a bit more competitive. So yeah, more people is always good. But we've got well over 100 people, so we're fine. And we're going to raise some money.
Congratulations is what I say, right? Salute says that sounds like a rich event.
I'll be glad when the weekend gets here and the event is over.
I bet.
Yeah.
But no, the work it takes to put events on. So let me welcome Irina. Hello, Irina. Hopefully I pronounced your name properly. I think I have, right? Thank you so much for joining
Irina,
us.
yes.
I appreciate it.
Irina, yes.
Irina, okay. English is a fun language. No, Jason, I see you too. So looking forward to hearing John's message for sure.
Jason, Jason's almost a neighbour of mine, just around the corner. So yeah, no, Jason, we go way back.
Welcome, Jason. Welcome. Look, I celebrate every British person that comes on these shows because I was telling John earlier, we're very resistant to show up on live events. Americans, they love lives. They love that. Literally, if you said it's a live event, they're like, I'm there. Because our British friends, they're very hesitant. But you're here, Jason. You made my day, right?
But Jason does voluntary work as well when he's not running around the world following his daughter's tennis career. But I know he does volunteer work as well. So hats off to you, Jason. Anyone that carves out a part of their time to do something for other people, I think is always commendable. I would say that because I do that, but I respect to Jason as well for doing it.
Awesome. Now, so Irina, Irina, you got the right idea. Thank you for organizing the event. I wish everything goes wonderfully, and you're doing a truly noble thing. That's you, John. So I'm a mere volunteer here, right? I'm here to support John. So.
That's true. You've given up your gig for this evening to sort of support me supporting this. So it's a kind of, there you are, the gift that keeps on giving. But
I think so many of us give, right? Like we give without necessarily looking at it as volunteering. But I think we are. So many people have compassion, right? They have kindness. Yeah. And we give many people give in their own little way. Free resource, sharing your knowledge, and I know it's very different to volunteering. Because I used to run a charity, a kids charity. We had volunteers, so I know the difference between a formal volunteer program as opposed to an informal help where you can kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I think you're right. I think just giving some of your time, or even in the office, encouraging people in their career path, all those kind of things, we can all give. But I think you're right. I think volunteering is probably just slightly bigger, slightly more organized, a bit more rigid in terms of what its expectations are. But anyone can do it. You don't need to be. You don't need a set of skills. You don't need a set of qualifications. You don't need to be the best speaker, the best orator, the best writer. You don't need to be the best coach. You don't need to be the best at anything. You just need to carve out some time out of your day to go, I'm going to do this. And whatever your motive, whether you want to be involved with the school because that's where your children go, or whether you want to be involved with a club because your kids go there or friends go there, whether you want to sort of volunteer at an old people's home, whatever you do, I think I think there's two things. People don't know where to start, and I think that people sometimes feel that it's a big commitment. Sometimes it can be a big commitment, but actually it's like anything. It's that first step, And if you don't like it, it's actually okay to say, you know what, this isn't for me. But I do think if everyone carved out a small amount of your time, I mean, just think how much dross people watch on TV, how much time they spend clicking through their phones. I mean, just take that time, do something else with it, right? And if it's half an hour a week, great. How many people in your street? Think about how much half an hour a week would be if everyone did that. I mean, it's phenomenal. I'll shut up now. I'm getting off my soapbox.
No. Look, I think that there is a point, right? I think the point is this. I don't think many people realize that society will break down without volunteers.
Yeah.
I realize that. So even though, let's say in the UK, for example, we have government funding for most things, right? We pay enough tax to fund councils to deliver services, right? But it still takes volunteers to make our society work. Now, I'm just thinking, the people who go into old people's homes, people who go into children's homes, people who go into, have to talk to their own, everything's run by volunteers, pretty much. The government won't tell you this,
It's volunteering. I think someone once said volunteering is the largest employer in the UK.
Really, by a long, long way. I'm glad you said that. As Atalu says, so to the time, the information, the funding, the skill, the service, there's many ways that we give, right? And maybe you and I want to celebrate volunteers today, John, right? Celebrate, give yourself a pat on the back if you do help in your community, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll get told thank you enough, maybe, for the volunteering we do.
But it is all about time. That's the only common factor. It's time, and it's some people say, I've got a family. That's okay. I'm not saying everyone has to do it. It's not mandatory. But wouldn't it be cool if we all at some point in our life set some time aside to do something? And I do get people have got busy lives, but I think people use the "I've got a busy life" not necessarily I would sometimes people are a little bit disingenuous with that statement. You have a busy life.
We never have enough time for everything. We never have enough time, John.
I know, but you have got a busy life, but maybe it's half an hour instead of watching some soap opera. Hats off, as you say, to everyone who volunteers, and I think everyone I've ever met who's a volunteer gets so much out of it, and not because they're grandstanding or because it's an ego thing. It's genuinely, it's just a nice warm feeling inside. It's not an external thing. You don't have to externalize it. You don't have to make a big look at me kind of show and dance with it. It's just a warm feeling inside. It's a cool way to be. When you have an elderly neighbor who you go and sit and play cards with for half an hour on a Sunday because they just need a bit of company and someone to talk to. That's kind of cool, and you don't have to tell anyone about it. Just wander over the road and do it. It's kind of cool. Makes you feel good.
I agree. And I think most volunteering has that feel good factor. And I think also it involves looking within ourselves. Really, who are we? What kind of person are we? I mean, it takes a lot of kindness, a lot of compassion to give to others. And the fact you're not being paid, it makes you, I think that says a lot more about you.
Yeah. And
sort of person you are.
But you also get something back, right? Where I live, there's a park, and every 4 times a year they get a load of people together, and it's the local community. They cut back a lot of the bushes and trees that are overgrown. They're in this muddy stream, raking it out and getting all the silt out. It's not pretty, and a lot of people locally, and it's built a real community. And some of them will meet up and go down the pub. Some of them will make new friends. They're all doing it for whatever reason, because they see value in helping the local community, having a nice park for people to walk their dogs in. But whatever your reason, whether it's just stay a bit fitter, it's kind of a nice thing to do. And something always comes back, whether it is just that sense of camaraderie, whether it is that feeling afterwards, or just the fact that the next time you go for a walk, the park looks better. Whatever it is, there's always a payback. There's always a reward, and you don't have to look for it. It just happens anyway. That's kind of how it goes on.
Yeah, you know, I fear we're doing less, and people are doing less and less, even though people are doing more and more because there's less resources to go around, if you ask me. But no, but it feels like, it can feel like we're not doing enough because maybe because the need is so great, John. The need all round, So let me welcome Dr. Lisa, our menopause genius. I know she volunteers every weekend. Every weekend, Lisa will tell you. I know Lisa's doing some community work for local
Yeah.
community organizations. And but it's what she loves doing, and actually it helps people. So good on you. Welcome, Zara, my Russian Sudanese friend. Congratulations on the new road, Zara. Well done, you. We'll talk later, right? Glad you're here. So Toulouse says, I remember seeing a fire service in Alberta in Canada that was completely run by volunteers. I was in awe. Like I said, Toulouse, many statutory services are run by volunteers.
Yeah.
I don't say. I don't know. I'm well aware. Even in the UK, I'm sure it's same in the US and same in Nigeria. The government doesn't pay for enough things, even though they try and tell us they do. They pay for everything, but they don't.
No.
So it relies on people to be community minded, to want to help others to get out, right?
But the reality is, it is time, and people are full of excuses. If you take the excuse away, I haven't got time, which is a dumb excuse. Why is it? How do we get more people to volunteer? I mean, that's the nub of it, right? And it doesn't matter what you do. Something big, something small, something local, something national, international, something that is close to your heart, something that is just you can use it to develop yourself as a person, right? You can take on it becomes a skills development thing. You can learn new skills, you can learn new talents doing this as well. So whatever the reason, why is it, Olu, you'll have to answer this question for me. Why is it more people don't do it? Any? Hello?
I think that requires a level of honesty, introspection than most people are willing to do, right? It's there's many reasons I can think of. So when you mentioned the lack of time, the fact that we're so busy, people genuinely believe they are, right? But they wouldn't. Many wouldn't accept that most things can be done quicker. We can all be more effective with our time, right? We'd love to take hours over something that can take minutes. We'd love to, I guess, think about it rather than doing it. So that's why I see. We can all spend hours doing nothing, which we do. You keep mentioning watching telly. But even cutting the grass. And I find we can spend a long time thinking, I'm busy, when all we're doing is just being busy fools, right? If we chose to be more intelligent over time, I think we can be more. We'll be more efficient. So volunteering will then help us be more efficient. Full stop, right? I do see you, Zara. I see you.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole 1 day a week. Why don't you just not put the TV on? I mean, and then you'll sit there twiddling your thumbs, thinking, "What I'll do? Well, read a book, or find something to do. Find something local. But the problem with things like TV is habit, right? You walk in, feed the cat, kick the dog, put the telly on.
Don't kick the cat. Don't kick the cat.
Not that I'm condoning kicking the dog, clearly, but it's a habit thing. So break the habit, and suddenly you've got hours free where you can do other really cool things. And lo and behold, make one of them volunteering. I just find this whole "I'm too busy" as lame. I know very few people that are that busy they cannot do anything. I do know some. And I'm just impressed by looking at their diary, what time they start, what time they finish, and all that kind of stuff, and it's just bonkers. But there are very few people like that. So I think it's two things. It's that kind of Oh, I'm too busy. No, that's an excuse. Now give me another one. Now give me another one. And after 3 excuses, you've run out. Okay, great. And then pick something you want to do, or pick something that's a skill you're going to develop. If you're rubbish at cooking, volunteer to go and work in a soup kitchen or a hostel, because you'll soon learn to cook. If you're not fit enough, join a litter picking group.
It makes me wonder whether it's our lack of community mindedness that we're losing. Whether we're losing that I care about local people. I'm sure that there's something there. Because we don't think of others really. We try not to think of others beyond our immediate circle, whether it's family or friends, right?
Yeah, we're too busy worried about Instagram.
Too self-centered. That's what comes down.
How many people like my picture? Really?
So welcome, Leon. I mean, the whole social media thing, that sucks our time, sucks everything out of us. Literally, literally takes it all out of us. It's ridiculous.
But you can
Zara.
But you can, so just that thought, Zara. Hello. But you can make it positive. If you want to be a super social media guru or something, that's fine. Go litter picking and take pictures of the changing seasons, the trees, the plants, the flowers. Put them on your Instagram. There you are. You become a sensation that way. But you're doing something in the process. Or when you're feeding old people in an old people's home, do some pictures of some
you're thinking old school, John. You're thinking old school. You're thinking of the noble things in life, right? The things that people want to see on social media is the waste of time stuff. They want to see you shopping for pointless stuff that no one needs. They want to see you in a restaurant sitting there because the restaurant looks trendy and it's Insta friendly. So I'm doing air quotes. They want to see you doing parkour on roofs, as if that's important to anyone, right? That's what they want to see. They want to see that stuff. So people gravitate
when you go
shopping
for an old lady who lives down the road.
They don't want to see that, do they? They want to see you shopping. Buying looking at expensive stuff, not actually buying the stuff. You're gonna buy it, right?
Yeah.
They were skewed, John. They were skewed. Zara, talk to us. Congratulations on the job, like I said. Well done, you.
I'm so excited. Hi, John. So I've started working for a beautiful company, but the reason I'm here today is because help for the Ukraine. Now, as Annie knows, my father is Russian, who went into Sudan in around the 1980s, and he worked in peace negotiations. He married a Darfurian woman, and Sudan is going through a lot of situations and a lot of issues. I posted something the other day that was related to, it was very personal to me because, at the end of the day, I am Sudanese by birth, and I am British by nationality, but I also have the other parts of who I am. And the thing, John, that I've learned is this. Sometimes when you think in philosophy of whatever I do, am I doing it out of the kindness of my heart, or am I doing it because people can see that I've done it? A lot of what I do in, who I help, who I support, is not necessarily on social media. Yesterday, I had an argument with a Sudanese man from a particular tribe. And, Sudan has the RSF, and then we have the government, and, Sudan has over 500 tribes. Now, I speak Arabic. I'm an African Arab. So I'm Arab first, then I'm African. Because my culture is Arabic, my language is Arabic, but I live in Africa, right?
You're a crazy mixed up kid, clearly, with all your languages and culture and background.
You should see our dinner table. Our dining table is the negotiations, peace treaty, I have 5 sisters and 2 brothers, right? So I have a sister who's training to be a neurologist. I have a sister who's in petrol. I have a sister who's in accountancy. I have another sister who's training to be a midwife. A brother who's a computer scientist. Another brother who works in vineyards. Don't even ask me why he went to Australia in Perth. And myself. And when I was 17, I worked as a situation reporter because I used to see my daddy. give aid in ways that I have never seen people give aid. I have never seen a man in my life nowadays, from where I am, give everything that he has for the goodness of others. He married my mother not because she had, but because of her wisdom, her understanding. Money is money at the end of the day. If abundance comes from self, abundance is with self. It's not with the materialism that you have around you. A lot of people are so busy worrying about what others think that they forget. Like in Africa, the proverb is this: we are trees and we are stones, right? You can either be a tree or you can be a stone. A tree provides what nourishment for the land, fruit for any passers-by. People can come and shelter from it. A stone needs to be hit in order for it to understand its purpose, right? Not hit in terms of the physical whacking somebody, but in terms of breaking it down to understand its source. Now, we are made up of minerals, vitamins, and whatever, but we are taught we come from the earth, right? We have the same amount of what the earth has, we have within ourselves. When it comes to understanding our nature of self, we should understand it not from the philosophy of the ideology or the philosophy of reading, but the philosophy of whatever we give to people, no matter what color, race, religion, gender they are, we make them feel happy. And that happiness is abundance itself, right? We can give
and it's reflected. You see happy people. Yeah, if you see someone walking around, you see someone walk in the office and they're smiling and they're really happy, it's infectious. I mean, first of all, Sudan has had 20 years of troubles and conflict, so my sympathies, and it's not going to end anytime soon, I don't think. And when people talk about help for Ukraine, they say, well, what about the other parts of the world? And I said, well, there are many, many other parts of the world, from the Horn of Africa all the way across the Sahel, for example. I can only do so much, and I'm focused on this. Now, if you have something that you're particularly interested in another country, in another part of the world, in another thing, that's absolutely fine. Please go with my blessing and do what you can do. You do what you can do, I'll do what I can do. So, but I do find it strange when people go up and go, oh, you only care about that because. Yes, and that's actually okay. It's not I only care about it, but that's the only one that I have the affordability of time and the skills and knowledge to be able to do anything about. The other things I don't know enough about to help them, but please, you go help them. But something you said at the beginning was whether you were challenging yourself to say, were you volunteering for the internal sort of feel good, or were you doing it for the external, how it looks, how people see it? Honestly, that's not the important thing. The important thing is you're doing something. Whatever your motive is, and whatever someone else's motive, if someone wants to be the big, look at me, look at, great. As long as you're actually doing it, not just paying lip service to it and not just showing up. Do something, whatever you want to get out of it, take out of it. But if you don't do anything, you don't deserve to take anything out of it.
Why is your focus, John, on help for the Ukraine? Why is it that?
So a number of reasons. So first of all, my wife was born there, but when the war started 14, 15 years ago, right? But when the war, as most of the world now considers it, started 3.5 years ago, my mother-in-law would come and spend winter with us, and I watched this lovely old lady just getting really upset about what was going on in her country. And I rang a very dear friend of mine, a chap called Mark, and I said, I want to do something. This isn't right. And he said, we're raising money to buy an ambulance. And that's how it started. So it is a personal thing. We were very clear from the beginning it was humanitarian only. But we never set out to deliver. We've now delivered nearly 60 ambulances and nearly 300 tons of aid. We never set out with that. We set out with, let's raise some money and deliver an ambulance because there are people going to need it. And it's just gone on from there. So for me, it was a personal thing. And we never had any grand plans. We just started with, let's do something. And maybe that's the way most most people should start any volunteering. I don't know. I don't have a grand plan. I don't have a great idea. I'm not going to flood my diary with all sorts of stuff. I'm just going to do something, whatever that is. Start with something small, and sometimes it grows into something big. But so for me, it was personal, and we're still doing it, and we'll continue to do it.
Go, Zara.
Go on, what? I was a 17-year-old in Sudan trying to peace negotiate between tribes. Go on, what, Annie?
I thought you were going to speak, so otherwise, no, so I don't want to ask John,
Yes.
what does volunteering in your Help for Ukraine look like?
Mhm.
So that's partly what do you do, and then partly how can we get involved is the question.
Yeah, I mean, our model is very, very simple, right? We need to buy an ambulance. Yes, no one. Occasionally you need to buy an ambulance. You need to fill it up with stuff. You then need to deliver it to our team. We have a team in Ukraine, in Lviv. We need to deliver it to the team in Lviv, and then extract the drivers that delivered it home safely. So that's the business model. The team in Lviv then do the last leg, which is obviously the slightly tricky leg. How people can get involved. So we have volunteer drivers. If you want to drive, you have to pay. Now people go, wait a minute, I'm paying you to drive an ambulance into a war zone.
Yes,
you are.
Yes. No, so look, if I have to pay to run the London Marathon, that's blue murder. That's me trying to kill myself, literally, right? So I ain't doing that. I'd probably rather go to Ukraine than go down the 26 miles of jogging.
Well,
less of that.
You get a seat. You get a seat for the whole duration. There is that, although it's not the most comfortable of chairs in the world. But the reality is, you have to pay, and it's not prohibitive. We're not talking thousands of pounds, right? But it's like you need to contribute because I don't mind if you do it because you're passionate and you believe, or I don't mind if you want to do it because you want to go down the pub the next weekend with your mates and brag about the stuff you've done. Whatever your motive, if you raise enough money to help us deliver an ambulance, we've delivered an ambulance and we've saved some lives. Whatever your motive. The other thing we need help with is raising money, because it all starts with money. We have to buy them, fill them up. There's no point sending an ambulance empty because it's half the job done. We get the ambulances at ridiculously cheap prices because we've bought so many of them now, but we've still got to buy them. We've got a garage that services and maintains them before they go. We get them MOT'd. We get all sorts of benefits and discounts as best we can, but someone's still got to buy the bus, as we call it, and get the drivers home safely after they've delivered it. And it needs a lot of diesel to get it there.
John, have you reached out to MSF, Medicine Sans Frontières?
We spoke to them in the past. I once had a conversation with Médecins Sans Frontières a while ago, and they when they came to us, they actually came to us. They had a very specific requirement for it was two or three ambulances. I can't remember, but they're incredibly highly spec'd ambulances. They had to be this, had to be that, and these ambulances are eye-watering sums of money, right? And it's just not our business model. We're delivering simple, basic ambulances to hospitals in whatever city you've heard of on the news. We deliver ambulances to them. We deliver ambulances to the Army Medical Corps. We delivered an ambulance recently to a power station because theirs had just got destroyed. So Médecins Sans Frontières could potentially be, if you like, a customer, for want of a better description of ours. But in terms of what they do and what we do, we work side by side, but we can't sort of benefit each other.
And but do you have the contact of Mark Cotts on LinkedIn? Do you know Mark Cotts? Have you heard of Mark Cotts?
I have, yes.
He's in Geneva. Yeah, Mark Cotts is a very good friend of my daddy's, and he I can give you his contact later on, so you can. I'll send you his email personally, so you can contact him and see if there's any support that you may need. Because what he can do is direct you towards, the areas that you may need.
Yeah, I mean, we're always open to conversations. That's the thing about whether it's volunteering or business life. Everything begins with a conversation, right? And you never know where it's going to lead. I mean, the other way people get involved in it is really corporate sponsors, corporate donors. If you to the last mission, we call them a mission, the last sort of tranche of delivery we took 8 vehicles in a convoy, drove all the way across Europe, handed over the ambulances outside a football stadium in Lviv, a football team called Shakhtar. Shakhtar Donetsk as was, but they've obviously no longer in Donetsk. So we handed outside the Shakhtar stadium. We had a film crew there. We were on TV the next night. Et cetera, et cetera. Now, if corporate sponsors and donors want to do that, we'll do it under your badge, under your branding. You can be the drivers. We'll deliver the ambulances to your facility, so you can load them. We'll get the trucks from the Department of Health or whatever. We'll hand you as much as possible. We'll do all the paperwork and all the complicated stuff that has to be in multiple languages. We can do all that. We'll have someone meet you at the border. We'll even make sure that we provide 1 or 2 of our drivers to go with you, just to sort of smooth over any sort of issues with language skills at the borders and so on and so forth. So we can do all of that. So it's a number of ways, but it all comes down to putting together a convoy of ambulances to get them there and then get everyone home safely. And multiple ways to get involved. But Zara, yes, pick up on your question.
As you're talking, I'm thinking health and safety, John. Health and safety. Yeah.
Health and safety. Okay, so it's a bit tricky. Let's just be clear. There are 2 elements to that.
To say the least.
First of all, the vehicles are fully legal, taxed, insured, MOT. You get insurance, breakdown insurance, health insurance cover, all that kind of stuff. Everything is sorted. It's all professionally done. As soon as you get beyond the grey zone, so between the Polish and Ukrainian border, there's a grey zone, so you're not in either country. As soon as you get beyond the grey zone, all bets are off. You're not insured. The vehicle is, but your life insurance, you may even want to check that. That may not apply either.
John,
I love your honesty.
What's the difference between the grey zone and the no-go areas? Because we used to have no-go zones. What's the difference between them?
So the grey zone means you've left Poland but haven't quite entered Ukraine.
A no-go?
A no-go is it's where people just don't want you peeking around and nosing around. And there's usually lots of people with very big guns, so we avoid those kind of areas. But once you go across the border, it's a beautiful, beautiful country. You've got about an hour and 20-minute drive to Lviv. So we drive to Lviv through some beautiful roads. You do occasionally see military checkpoints. You do occasionally get stopped by people with very big guns, wearing lots of green stuff. But it's just paperwork check, and then we're on our way. The people are lovely. We meet the people. We have the same. Obviously, it's the same people. It's our team in Lviv, so it's the same people. So it's kind of cool from my point of view to meet up again. I haven't seen them in months. That kind of stuff. They do the tricky bit, which is driving to where it's needed. We then go for a well-earned beer and a dinner, and then get out the next day. So, yeah, it's quite sobering. There are people who don't want to go across the border, and we're absolutely fine with that. There are people who come on the tours and say, I just do not want to go across the border. And that is absolutely fine. Stay back in Krakow, enjoy a beautiful evening, have a nice day, do some shopping, have a lovely sort of day in Krakow, and we'll see you tomorrow. We don't send you home early. We want to meet up, all of us together, when we've finished. But there are people who just don't want to go across the border, and that is absolutely fine.
John, I worked with a guy called Jabu from Zimbabwe, and my mentor at that time, or rather someone that I had to follow to learn what he did as a reporter, Stephen Larson. And I remember being in these UN vehicles. I was like a 17-year-old, these huge vehicles. And I'm sat there going, we're going to die soon, we're going to die soon, we're going to die soon. We arrived at the border. And this man, Sudanese man, because I'm speaking about Sudan, in Darfur, he came and he said to me, your grandmother. And I looked at him and thought, what do you mean? He said, well, the things you have around your neck, they resemble the tribes that you come from. And I said, okay. He said, what's this white man and this black man doing in the car with you? And I said, I'm working with these two people. I'm part of the UN. I work in the World Food Programme, right? And the World Food Programme in the United Nations is in charge of the distribution of food and resources, not healthcare facilities. Like, we didn't do much about health. What we did was, when a village was burnt down, we'd go and set up the tents. We would go and make sure that the things were set. And Jabu was not on the United Nations list of, like, he didn't get paid, that he was volunteering. And I asked him once, I remember I said to him, we traveled from Khartoum to Niala, then from Niala to an area called El Gadarif, right? We traveled to this area. And this man, he was, in a wheelchair. He'd already had, like, his limbs cut off by people in Sudan. And he was still continuing. And I remember when he had his funeral, because he volunteered, the amount of people that raised money to take his body back to Zimbabwe was immense. It was such an honor. When you are like yourself, you're a volunteer, right? You're doing what you need to do to show the world that you are human, you care about individuals who cannot care enough for themselves. And it's remarkable to see with what you're doing with the Ukraine and help for the Ukraine. It's very important, I think, for a lot of people to realize that there are individuals like yourself, like Annie provides the platform, and you can see what Annie are doing.
There are people who've given so much more, right? I just driving an ambulance. It's really not. It's really, no. But it's really nothing. One of the things I have so many memories of things and more to come, in what we're doing. But we were handing over 2 ambulances in Lviv. We had we met some children from a school there. The school the school uses art therapy to help children overcome trauma, and they donated things to our charity so that we could raise money so that we could buy an ambulance. I mean, they're a country, that these children are traumatized, and yet they're helping us raise money. So we were there chatting to the children, and this chap came up and in very poor English, very, very broken English, he said, what are you doing? And I said, well, we've just handed over 2 ambulances to this school, to use to look after these children. And we're from the UK, and this is what we do. And he said something, I can't remember what he said, just something like, thank you so much for what you do for my country. And he put his arms around me and gave me a hug. It's a very humbling and pleasant experience. It was only as he walked away, I suddenly realized the guy had no legs. And there's him saying, thank you, what you're doing for my country. And he never made a thing about it. He never said anything. And it really was quite something. And I could take you literally to the spot where that happened tomorrow.
Yeah. Look, I think it's the beauty and, I guess, the weirdism is that sometimes the people who have the least to give are the ones who give, right? The ones who volunteer. The ones who who have the greatest struggles in life. Look, I do want to show you a video, John, because I know the video's there, so I think it gives people a good idea what you really do. Okay. And I'm doing the show. Zara, I will say this, Zara. Please connect with John. You have a podcast platform.
Yes, I do. Real Talk Reclaim, guys. Go and listen to it. It started off with stories from Darfur, but John, I interview visionaries and people who have a purpose. I currently interviewed, who did I last interview, Annie? Keith Keller and Graham. And
John hasn't got a clue who these people are. Like, John has no idea who our friends are, who are crazy.
I'm too busy raising money to drive ambulances. I haven't got time for a social life.
But John, you'll be lovely. I'll connect with you. So because I think I share a lot of what I do on TikTok. TikTok, as Annie says it, because it's for young people, even though I'm not so young. I share a lot of the people who come onto my podcast on Real Talk Reclaimed. I share their vision and I try and get sponsorship in that direction of things. So I'm currently very heavy on TikTok because I raise money on TikTok.
Okay. Love to talk.
So yeah, it would be nice.
No. Please go along. I want John to be a Spotify star.
Yes. There are 11 countries, Annie. We're adding on 13.
Excellent. What's happening behind Mad Minded? Is that what it is?
Like-minded? Like-minded. Yeah, this is the company that I currently have. This is the baby. The mother is Sauropod, but this is Mike-minded. Like-minded is the play on words. But Spotify, Real Talk Reclaims, runs under Mike-minded because this platform gives people an opportunity to prove who they are to the listeners that I have, because my listeners are very scrutinizing. They will ask you the most randomest, who are you, where do you come from, and how old are you, and why do I need to listen to you? Those are my listeners. That's why it's called Like-Minded and Real Talk Reclaimed.
I like it. Of course I like it. We're here to create big brands and do big work. And I say, John, above all else, when you do global work, I think it's a whole different mentality, right?
Indeed.
Give me a couple of 3 minutes to show John's video to give you a real idea of what Help for Ukraine does. And then we'll come back and then begin to work towards our
Ukraine approaches. A group from East Yorkshire have bought 4 ambulances filled with medical supplies and driven them to Lviv to donate them to those in need. Simon Revell from the Bridges charity had planned to buy just 1 ambulance, but ended up raising more than £36,000. Simon filmed his journey to Ukraine.
So here we are on departure day. Everybody just getting the vehicles sorted out.
Well, the original project was me and a mate to take an ambulance with some medical supplies down to Ukraine. We hoped to raise about £7,000. It went mad. We raised over 36,000. So today we're taking 4 ambulances full of medical supplies.
A little bit of apprehension. More about driving on the right than entering an active war zone.
Ukraine is a country that for decades has enjoyed freedom and democracy and the right to choose its own destiny. We and the world cannot allow that freedom just to be snuffed up.
It's nearly 2 years now that Russia invaded Ukraine. I've watched the news over that time period. My heart goes out to the Ukrainian people. So to be able to do this, 4 ambulances filled with medical supplies to help out not only military casualties but civilian casualties is a real privilege. The Ukrainians didn't deserve what they got, so to give a little. And especially being ex-military, I think it's something that is never going to be forgotten.
1858, and we have arrived. Ignition off. We've done it.
Yeah.
We made it. We're here.
Well done. Yep. All kits out, ready to rock.
3 p.m.
We were still in the car park at the handover and they were driven past us and on their way. And we found out why. It's one Ukrainian guy explained to us that everyone he knows knew someone who's been killed. Thank you to all those people. We've got the money to take 2 more in the spring. I want to raise the money to make that 4. So until the spring, Slava Ukraine.
Yeah, there are some incredible people, aren't they? Well done to Simon. Not 1, but 4 ambulances, £36,000 raised, over £36,000 taken to Ukraine. Simon, well done.
But there's a case in point. I mean, Simon, if you listen at the beginning, he started off by saying, I just want to raise some money to buy an ambulance. And he ended up buying 4. And Simon is now an integral part of Help for Ukraine, and since then he's gone on and we've gone on and continued to sort of deliver more. But he started off with a very simple idea. I want to buy an ambulance. And his motive was driven by sort of seeing some of the displaced Ukrainians locally to him. But if you then look at the 2 chaps that were in the ambulance being interviewed, both of them have been back again since delivering ambulances. So it's this idea that you don't have to come up with a grand plan if you want to do volunteer work. Just do something. One thing, it doesn't matter what it is, just pick something, do something. And strange things happen. Sometimes you do more of it, sometimes not. But sometimes you find it's not for you, so find something else. But very often it's the start of a process, and Simon is hugely significant. I've sent you a link in your LinkedIn profile. It's a film we made interviewing our founder, Lord Munson, and with the former BBC journalist and book writer, John Sweeney. And it gives a kind of more detailed sort of explanation of who we are and what we do. So feel free to promote that if you want.
Cool. I will play that one day. It's 10 minutes long, right?
Yeah.
So
it's a proper film.
And you play it. Play like 2 minutes of it. Come on, Uncle Eddie.
I have to find an extract somewhere. A bit that I can play. Otherwise, look, I tell you what. If I play more than 5 minutes, YouTube will basically ban me for copyright, and they will ban me for copyright. So.
It's all right. I know the producer and everyone involved. In fact, they're all volunteers for Help for Ukraine. The lady who made the film is actually going to be at our dinner on Thursday, and she's in charge of AV. So I couldn't think of a better person, really. So that's the thing. That's the other thing with volunteering. Once you volunteer once, it's very easy to get sucked into a lot of other things, and that's probably not a bad thing. But to go back to that movie, we make movies when we can, sometimes just for internal consumption. We've been in numerous national newspapers and stuff, and we do that. And it's not about going, "Oh, look at me." It's about raising publicity, raising awareness. It is all about, you need to know what we're doing, because very easily we get bored and it gets dropped off the radar and it's no longer on the news. So that's a challenge as well, keeping notified.
For sure. Thankfully, you've been on the news many times, right? You've been on the news. So when I went to your website, I thought, wow, there's many videos of newsreel. Not just here either. No, it's here and in the Ukraine as well. You've been on several of the news channels there too.
But in Ukraine, it's interesting because we make the news, and again, the people over there suddenly realise they're not alone. That 3.5 years after it started, there are still people delivering ambulances, delivering medical aid, delivering all sorts of stuff. Right? There are still people making a difference, or helping to make a difference, or trying to make a difference, and that has huge sort of psychological benefits to people living there. So there are many reasons for doing it. Mainly to just keep awareness and let people know that we're still supporting them.
Good on you. As Irina says, thank you for sharing this story, John. This is an incredible display of resilience. I definitely agree with that. Isaac, thank you for joining us. A great initiative. I say John is an amazing person. I tell you that for nothing. Well, he's a brave man anyway to start off, right? He's a humble one. I just want to say that, right? Tracy, we see you as well. Our audio book genius. Glad you're here. Of course, Tracy has her own events too. See, John, my make you famous thing is about getting my friends to know you and then give you their platforms. I say that because I think this is how we all volunteer in our bits, right?
But that's the point. You've given up your time, and Zara's given up her time. Zara, you could be sitting doing something, maybe watching TV. I mean, but you've given up your time. So when we talk about volunteering, it comes in many different ways. It comes from as I say, just going and getting the shopping for a neighbour who perhaps can't get out as much, or walking someone's dog because they've broken their leg, or there's lots of things you can do. I don't know why I'm assessing with dogs on this.
Well,
Have
at least we're not kicking dogs.
Yes.
That's not cat. I got two
And I
of
don't
those.
even have-
No kicking my cat.
we don't even have a dog, but but the point is, you can all do something small. It hasn't got to be something grand, just small gestures, right? A lot of small gestures are huge,
I'm thinking though, you must get a big good feeling for how far helpful Ukraine's come. So the video shows the first 4 ambulances. I'm saying, when now you're nearly at 60.
So first of all, you get beyond the slapping yourself on the back. You just get into this. This is just what we're doing. It's how it is. It's actually, when we go in a convoy, you're spending time with like-minded people, and that is a lovely social experience. Everyone's there with a purpose. So that there are moments like that just make it worthwhile. But actually, the person that's probably got the most out of this is actually my mother-in-law, and that's the reason we started. I got, upset at watching her. You got to understand, the Ukraine-Russia border is a bit like the England-Scotland border. It's incredibly porous. People just move across backwards and forwards. People marry across. There are people in that part of Russia speak Ukrainian. A lot of Ukrainians speak Russian because that's what the Soviet Union dictated. You look right across the former sort of Soviet bloc countries. They all speak Russian because that was what they were expected to speak. That's no different to why South America speaks Portuguese and Spanish, and there's French and English and Dutch spread around the world as other languages. So it's all part of that same philosophy. But I'm kind of getting off the point. The point is, the person that's getting the most out of this is my mother-in-law, because she went from watching a country she'd known all her life being destroyed by another country she'd known all her life, that through her working career, they were one and the same. They were part of the Soviet Union. She doesn't differentiate. So she went from being a victim to suddenly, there's someone in the house that's doing stuff, and she's getting involved in raising awareness. She's getting involved in sort of finding stuff to put in the back. Huge sort of psychological benefit to her in terms of how she feels about the situation. So there are many reasons for doing stuff. That's mine.
Good on you, my friend. Welcome, Mike. So Mike, the great thinker, the great complimenter. That's what I call him from now on, right? He elevates everyone, with his amazing writing. I guess personal. It's a pen pick of people, right? It tells you who they are, what they're passionate about, and so on and so forth. But Mike says volunteering pays untold dividends, whether you believe in karma or not. I said that's the truth, right? I think we all gain so much, and the people you're helping gain so much too. So I remember that they were not managing volunteers working with kids. It's people will literally transform from being the shy selves who come on day one to being the confident person a few weeks later, and so that's a joy for the organizers of the program, so to speak. But there is there is a point you've touched on a few times, John. Which is almost like I don't know whether it scares people, whether it's it builds them up. I think the realization that because volunteering is such an integral part of communities, the need never goes down. The needs always going up. And almost like what we need from volunteers, what we need from people who are willing to give, it always goes up.
Yeah, you're right. There's a thought process that people go through. Well, I don't need to let someone else do it. Whatever that is, right? I don't need to volunteer at my children's school because there's enough people volunteering, or I don't need to do something because there's enough people doing that. There is always more demand than supply in terms of volunteering, and sometimes you might get told, no, actually, we've got enough volunteers. Well, don't take that as a negative. Take that as, okay, I'll go and find something else to do. But go and pick, look, 3 years ago, I'd never driven an ambulance. I mean, I'd driven a lot of things, but I've never driven an ambulance. It is a lot of fun with the lights on and the sirens on, I will admit. But I'd never driven an ambulance. And I've driven across Europe. I used to enjoy driving, but I'd never done anything like that. And I'd certainly never had to navigate my way around all the paperwork of crossing a border with an ambulance full of stuff and driven into a war zone and handed over to some people. Never done any of that. If I'd have just sat there and gone, oh, I can't do that because I've never done it, someone else would have done it for sure. And other people are doing it, but we've done it as well. So we've added something. So if you sit there with the whole, I've never done it before, so what? If you can't cook, go and join a soup kitchen. You'll learn to cook.
Yeah. There's a first for everything, but I think you are a testament that age is not a barrier. It's whether we want to help. Yeah, and I know you're only 21, John. I get it. It's fine.
And he's 21, and what age am I then?
You're about 17, are you?
But age is a thing. Through life, different things become important to you. So when you're younger and you don't have children, probably volunteering at school isn't the thing. But there is probably other stuff you could do. Go and volunteer at a football club, teach your kids how to play football. As you get older and you have family, your perspectives change, your value changes, your diary changes, everything changes. Your availability changes. So do something that fits around them. When you're older and maybe the children are older, they're independent, do something different again. You don't have to it's not like you have to pick a subject and stick with it forever. You can be a football coach for 5 years, and then you can go and be a school governor or work on the fundraising committee, and then you can go and help at the local, homeless shelter, and then you can be driving an ambulance. Whatever you want to do. Yeah, it's not like you're stuck with it.
Yeah, just do something, right? Do something, do something. We all can, and unless we actually lift our finger and decide to go and do it,
stop making excuses. Make a list of the things that you could do, the things you want to do. Make a list of the things that you've no idea how to do. Turn it into a personal development, a skills development thing. Go find your passion, right?
Yes, for sure. It's all right.
Yes, your passion and your purpose, John. I think it's very important because growing up in Southern Darfur and learning about, everyone knows about the tree. There's a story that my grandmother used to tell me, and I shared it today on all of my social media platforms, and it is about a seed. And the tree looked down at the seed, and the seed was very, very small. It didn't understand its purpose or anything, and it sat under the stars, and it was under the rain, and then the tree started to dig itself. It went into the ground and grew up to become this thing with purpose. When you have an idea like you have, John, everything starts off with that seed. That seed it becomes the thing. It's your belief. I believe that I need to grow. I believe that I have purpose. I believe that I have a vision. Your thought process dictates to you the vision, and later on produces the ideology that becomes the dream that you bring into your reality. And learning to understand that no matter how small people give, like you said earlier on, helping the neighbor, seeing someone who needs to cross the road, or whatever it may be, we all start off with this idea that is this little seed that we don't quite understand where we're going. But the more we bury ourselves into our foundation, the more we understand where our purpose needs to be. You're helping your mother-in-law. Your foundation, the seed is already there. You've produced remarkable things. And a lot of people have to understand this. no matter where you are, if that thought is that seed and you believe in that purpose, you have a chance to root into a foundation that creates this purpose. And John, you're remarkable with what you do.
I hate it when people say that, but thank you. I'll take that.
Okay,
I just find that I find that maybe it's just part of my makeup.
It's British humility, John. You know, the Americans laugh at us every time.
but you're right about this kind of find your purpose. Not everything has to grow into a mighty oak. I mean, one of the team at Help for Ukraine is a chap called Mark, who is so instrumental in everything we do, and he is absolutely, he's the reason I got involved. He was the guy I rang. He doesn't want to be front and center. He doesn't want to be on TV. He doesn't want his name in the paperwork. He just wants to just get on, tell him what you need him to do. He'll do the paperwork. He'll organize it. He will liaise with anyone that needs to be liaised with. He will work out where the vehicles need to go, who the recipients is. He'll do all the customs clearance, all the real complicated little things that need to be done. And he just gets on with it. And then he'll drive, and he's spending 20-something hours sitting side by side with a guy in an ambulance and not arguing. Probably says much more about him than it does me. But he's absolutely instrumental. And there are people like that in volunteering who don't want to be, the noisy guy at the front, right? Just want to quietly head down and get on with it. And if that's you, you still have so much more you can contribute. You don't have to be big and noisy and brash.
I agree with you entirely. Of course, I agree with you. And I always say, if you can't do great things in that way, at least do little things, in a great way. Do nice. Nazara, as we're talking about this seed, I think humanity's, it's littered with people who have great ideas every day, right? I think I would love for more of us to be like John, where and be that seed where you think it, and then you go and do it. So part of me thinks we need that belief that everything we do is going to make a difference to someone. I think that for me that's a big part. John, I can see you thinking.
No, I'm just saying it doesn't have to be something big and grand. Just do one thing, make a difference. Add a value. You can be. I go to your local library and sit with children and help them learn to read. Help them do that, or a computer club with people who are struggling to get familiar with computers. There are so many things you can do. It hasn't got to be a grand plan and a mighty tree. It's very simple, and I think also it's something that should be taught in schools. It should be something that is part of academia. I'm not saying we put all the kids on a bus and send them off to the park to do litter picking, although I'm not against that. But I'm saying
that's Nigeria for you, where you get kids cutting the grass in the school rather than hiring a gardener.
But encourage them to want to do it in other ways, right? Encourage them to add value to their community in sorts of ways. I'm not saying it has to be a weekly thing. I'm not saying it has to be a regular thing, but a couple of days a term or something, maybe not for every year and all that kind of stuff, but make it part of, give them some ideas of things they can do, help them understand that contributing to others is a really cool thing to do.
It really is. Look, I'd say let's leave here today, all of us, and go and do something for our community. Right? I think people will be amazed, John, if they looked and then really saw how many opportunities there are to help others just in their community alone.
Yeah.
So never mind going further. I think the need is there. It's maybe part of the answer today, John, is that we just don't know enough about the opportunities that are out there. As Mike says, helping another human will have an impact on you. Of course it will. Love elevates, communicates, and transcends. This is Mike's genius, right? So my mind says, be the change you seek in others. Don't try, just do. Just yeah, I agree, Mike. So the world's full of ideas, Mike, and we talk ourselves out of them very quickly. You know, I want to help others. Oh, yeah. So shiny, is that a rabbit? And it's called social media. And suddenly we're distracted, and the idea's gone. Right? If we, you know, if we learn to just follow through on those seeds, as Zara talked about,
yeah,
you know, what could we really grow?
Yeah. And if anyone fancies a nice road trip to Ukraine, let me know. At that point, all of those drivers you saw on that film, they'd never driven an ambulance to you. They'd never driven an ambulance. 1, they'd never driven to Ukraine. 2, they'd never driven into a war zone. 3, they all did it again. You know, all the ones you saw interviewed in the vehicles, they've done it again. They clearly got something out of the experience that made them think, you know what, I want to do more. So, you know, complete novices in terms of the experience. They just said, yeah, we want to do something. So do it, and you'd be surprised. Sometimes you'll do it again and again and again, and then it becomes habit. And once it becomes habit, it's how you are. It becomes who you are.
No, for sure. Zara, I saw you. Are you volunteering to drive to Ukraine?
Obviously, I always volunteer. I volunteer in asylum centers. I do soup kitchens. I volunteer listening to my friends who annoy me. But anyways, yeah, I think having the background, I think because growing up in humanitarian, like the bubble of help gives children the understanding of sharing. Now, both of my parents have always taught me to share, like ideas, to share things. Because when you're young, your parents buy you things. And like I was born in a hut, but I had a paddling pool, you know, I had like a swing, I had everything I could possibly need. And people around me didn't have that much. But when you are in a foundation of love, understanding, and growth, sharing becomes naturally a part of you. So, yes, I volunteer because when I see people grow through me helping them, it gives me the ability to understand what love really is. When you share, love does not become things, it becomes growth you see in people. You know, when I volunteered as an asylum as a immigration advisor for asylum seekers, we used to hold cooking evenings. And I used to tell them, you know, everyone, the asylum seekers, give me £1. And we'd sit there and have a meal. And we would all bring parts of our heritage and our culture. And because they missed their families, sitting together eating gave them the ability to just speak. Yep. Sometimes when you volunteer, you learn more about yourself than you do others. But when you remove self and you see that you're having an impact on people, you're shaping their ideology and what they think of where you come from, that is the most important thing. Because most people think Arabs are like this and Russians are like that and Sudanese are like that. But when you remove all of the barriers and you say, I am here, and I hold my hands up, I'm here to help you regardless of who you are, you learn about others more than you learn about yourself. And Mike made a very good point. When you are transcending, when you are helping, when you are impacting others, it leaves something in you. It gives you the sense of, I feel happy that I can give to a community that may have never understood who I am until I got up and said, I'm here, regardless of where I am. Because most people think that it's only those who are in privilege that can help, but it's not that. It's people who have a heart, regardless of however much they have in their pocket, that 10p, that 20p, that conversation, that heart. Hearts cost money on the black market, yes, but hearts in terms of giving back to the communities that require it the most, allows those communities to understand the world is not as big as you think it is, as long as we're all connected. And that's the most important thing. So, John, you have humility, and what I have is the ability to communicate what I feel. And you did the exact same. So it's an honor, though. Annie, thank you so much for having me today on here.
No, thank you for joining us as well. No, but we're not done yet. We're going to be done soon. There's a couple of questions.
I know, but I'm saying thank you.
No, so no, I love your shares. No, it is a hard thing. No, so when you put yourself out to help others, you are that person who has kindness and compassion. Is what it's a cheesy way I describe it. Of course, it's a lot more than that. It is genuine care, genuine love for yourself and for others. And as Mike said earlier, the benefits come back to you, right? John, let's do a couple of questions that Mike has asked. Right. I asked the question earlier, John, or earlier, Mike. As a risk manager, what's the risk of driving into a war zone?
Okay, so just specifically about us. So first of all, we only go to Lviv, so we are way over on the west. So we are hundreds of kilometers from the front line. So that's hopefully a good thing. The sad truth, however, is that every night Russia sends missiles, glide bombs, and drones into different cities, and it rotates them around and moves them around. Some cities get hit regularly, some cities get hit, and towns and villages more sporadically. And the reason for that is you go to sleep at night fearing the worst, and nothing might happen. So the reality is you're in Lviv, which it's not nowhere near the bottom of the list, because it's the best way of describing it is the regional capital for west of Ukraine. That's the best way of describing it. So it's a high target. It's also a big logistics area. So things happen, but it's a big city, so you've got to be in the wrong hotel, the wrong night, the wrong, etc., etc., etc. We have on our mobile phones, there is an app you can get, and everyone installs the app, and it tells you if there's an air raid, so you don't have to listen for sirens. Your phone will beep, and you rush all the way to the basement. So stay in a hotel with a basement, and that doesn't happen that often. It has happened, so it's relatively, we can make it as safe as we possibly can. The people doing the last leg, so taking it from Lviv to where it needs to go to, way over further east in Ukraine, that's a bit more tricky. That's why there's a curfew at midnight right across the country. So that does get a bit more tricky, but we're not. And then we get extracted out to Krakow and fly home. But then, I live in central London. What's the chance of being stabbed in London? There are statistics.
Quite a lot, though. If you live in the US, the more chance you're going to be shot several times by several people.
Yeah, but unless you go to Brixton, Annie.
I'm sure I think that the general gist is just be sensible, be safe, right? And that applies anywhere at any time, crossing the road, right? Let's be honest. So I think, we do as much as we possibly can. We keep a relatively low profile when we're traveling. We stay in a hotel that has a basement, and you might go, so what? But should the worst happen, that's important. So we absolutely do the best we can, but it is a war zone, and we understand, therefore, that some people don't want to go across the border, and we're fine with that.
There's danger everywhere, right? And I think many of us we assume that our place is much safer than it really is. I also assume that war zones must be, which some are, I'm sure, bombs but dropping everywhere, literally everywhere.
We're nowhere near the front, and as I said, the people who don't want to go across the border, that's absolutely fine. By the time we get to the border, we only need one driver per vehicle. We have two up until that point, so half the people can drop off, and if we need to get more drivers, across the border to bring them back in, we can. But rarely do people want to drop out. They understand the dangers, but it's we've done more than a dozen missions and nearly 60 ambulances. So, we've had a few air raids.
No one. You haven't lost anyone yet.
No, we've lost vehicles.
Excellent. I'm glad you say that.
The vehicle you see in the background.
Hold on, Sarah.
A building fell on that. We're not sure what it was hit by, but the building fell on it. And if I tell you it was in use at the time, and you can fill in the rest yourself.
That's the ambulance there, my friends. You get the idea, right? Mike suggests bulletproof in the ambulances. You can't. Is that possible? Is that even possible? Anyway,
Well,
you haven't got to answer that yet.
You can get bulletproof is not going to stop a glide bomb or a missile or even a drone. The drone will just target the weakest point. So yeah, it's
sorry, Zara.
It's a nice idea, and there are certain things we can do. We can reinforce the windscreens and things like that. But it rarely is it small arms fire that's the problem.
But that would raise the price.
But that's the thing. It also has a huge cost on the price. The reality is most of the stuff we send over isn't right on the front line. People get extracted from the front line in an SUV or a 4x4, and then we pick them up from them to hospitals. A lot of the ones that we send over, they get used by local hospitals, just ferrying people around, because they don't last forever. They do get destroyed. The Russians do target ambulances and fire engines with drones and other munitions. But a lot of time they're just worn out. These things are, they get a rough life. They're driving over some pretty rough terrain and they just fall apart, and then they get cannibalized for other things. So there's all sorts of reasons why we have to keep replacing them. They need more than ever now. But to answer that point about why don't we bulletproof them, here's a really, really interesting fact. In Ukraine, they love British ambulances. And the reason they love British ambulances is because the driver is sitting on the other side.
It's true. That's why that distorts the picture for whoever wants to attack the ambulance, right? Not to attack the driver, right? So they're half confused in the first place. Mike, I'll come to your comments, Mike. I'll come to your next question as well in a second. So Mike says, I did a mission to Uganda. I can't speak to the impact on the Ugandans, but I came back with a deep sense of gratitude and amazement at the joy on the children's faces. So that's a big part of volunteering in the UK, right?
There are some things in life that you just truly cannot buy. And just the joy that you get from the reactions you see, you cannot buy that.
It is that joy on the people for whom you put yourself out to help. There's a joy on their face, and that's priceless, literally. So some people will say, why don't you just pay them to do the job, right? I think that priceless sentiment is, it's a reality. So that's why we used to use volunteers. That's our excuse anyway. So I used to, when I run children's charity, the volunteers they have a different approach, which workers don't necessarily have. So they care more. They want to. They're there to help, but not to make money, not to build a career, unless that's part of benefits they're going to get, right?
And if you want to volunteer in a hospital, you within reason get to do the things that you want to do, right? The staff have their tasks, their jobs to do. But if you're volunteering, you get to sort of almost cherry pick the stuff that you enjoy doing, whether that's talking to people, whether that's feeding people, whether that's taking people out in their wheelchairs or taking them for a walk or just talking to them. Whatever you choose to do as a volunteer, you get to choose.
get to do, and you get to do as much or as little as you want to do. But
Yeah.
that's the way most organizations work, right?
Yeah.
You know, thank you so much, Odelia. Thanks for joining us. I know you're a busy lady. You know, I'm sure you were there this morning for Eric's show, but you're here as well. I appreciate you. I really do. Thank you for being here. Yeah, so there are a couple of simple questions. One a bit more complicated question, and then I got another comment that I want to show you. Right. So where do we start? So, you know, where does the trip start? You know, say someone wants to drive an ambulance to. I know Mike is in the US, by the way.
Yeah, so we okay, it's a long drive from the US, even the East Coast. So, but we have had American drivers. We have had two guys, only two. We're always open to more, Mike. We've had two guys who flew over from the US to drive UK ambulances to Ukraine, hand them over, and we did everything for them. Well, we didn't arrange the flights and their hotel while they were here, but we arranged everything else for them. And so they just turned up and got on with it, kind of thing. But in terms of where the ambulances leave, we have two teams. We have one based in the northeast of England, in Yorkshire, and we have one based in southwest London. So we leave from those two locations. The one from the northeast, we get an overnight ferry across to the Hook of Holland, and then we drive from Holland across to all the way, and it pretty much goes through Holland, Belgium, Germany, Poland, Ukraine. And then the team from the south goes on the Eurotunnel, and then it goes France, Belgium, Germany, Poland, Ukraine. And actually, if you look at a map, it's from the south of England, it's a straight road. And Ukraine is directly east. People think Ukraine is south of the UK. It's actually directly east. So we drive. In terms of how long it can take, we're dictated by what the drivers want. So we have driven non-stop. We've driven literally 28 hours. You're either sleeping in an ambulance trying to, or you're driving and drinking lots of coffee. We take the speed limiters off. Less said about that, the better. And we drive and just fill up with fuel. So that can take 28 hours door to door, and then you night at a hotel and home again. So I've left my place late on a Friday night, and I've been back in the office on Monday morning. So we can do that. The more common way is you take 3 days and you break the days up and you have nights in hotels. And that's good for large groups because you've got a sense of purpose and you're socializing together. And it's only a couple of extra days before the ambulances get there. So those are the two things. Do you need an extra? No, if you're of a certain age, i.e. above about 40 in the UK, you can drive it on a UK driving license. If you're below 40, you probably had to do I don't even know what it is, D1 or something. You had to drive, something slightly bigger. The reality is, no one's recording this, are they? Once you get across the border and you're into France and things like that, nobody cares. It's fine. We're good. Once you're in Ukraine, you can drive what you like.
I love your honesty. I really do. It helps, right?
Yeah. So, but in terms of back to Mike's comment about where people can do this from, if you don't live in the UK and if you want to take part, that's fine. We'll work it out. On the road, I've met people from Spain, from France, from Poland, from the Netherlands, from Germany, all doing what we're doing. And you just meet in a fuel stop. We're stopping for fuel and we're standing around drinking coffee, filling up with diesel and maybe grabbing a sandwich. And there'll be a group from another country there, and you'll just end up chatting to them. And it's at that point there's this kind of real coming together, a word you used earlier, and it was sense of purpose. That sense of purpose really gets reinforced when you meet people from other countries doing exactly what you're doing.
Okay, Mike's saying he's just about 40 plus. Just about, Mike. Just about, right?
Yeah, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. We can skate around some of those rules if we have to. We're fine. We're good with that.
Superb. I suppose one of the harder questions maybe for you is, Mike says, what's the impact volunteering has had on you and yours? What's the downstream impact?
Oh my gosh! Well, I mean, in terms of my day job and my work, I have to say huge huge thank you to the company I work for, who, I mean, I'm not saying they just let me have loads of time off and all that kind of stuff. They're not, we have a business to run, but they are incredibly supportive, and they're incredibly proud of what we're doing. So that's kind of cool. So that's good. The coolest thing one of the coolest things I possess is a Father's Day card from my daughter, who described me as a role model. I'll take that. I will take that any day of the week. That for me is huge. But in terms of business, I try not to mix too much of business with this, because they're very different things and people have opinions. So there is no commercial imperative, if you like, for me to do this. It's not configured that way, but it certainly does have benefits. I know for sure customers of mine who are impressed with what we're doing, and I'm sure it changes their perception of myself and the company I work for. They're very supportive. So Vantage Point are brilliant at supporting us.
Yeah, absolutely. Volunteering, especially on this level, on your level, John. It has to have impact on people. And it's a good thing, right?
Yeah. Some people do it for purely altruistic reasons. Some people do it because it ticks a box. It looks good on your CV or your LinkedIn profile or whatever. Whatever your motivation, that's fine. That's completely fine. And if you want to buy and deliver your own ambulances as a corporate entity and put your branding all over it, and it's great for your GSR and for your sense of purpose and for what you do in the community, that's fantastic. Whatever your reason, it's fine. As long as you
just do something. Do something. I hear you, John. Look, I want to end on Mike's great talent for capturing who people are. So he says, John, your name belongs on the shelf reserved for those who quietly keep the world moving forward. As a giver of aid and driver of ambulances, you show what true service looks like: steady, compassionate, and purposeful. You remind us that real heroes do not seek the spotlight; they simply answer the call for help when it arrives. That's you, John. Yeah. Now, well done, you, my friend. Well done, you.
Thank you.
Yes. Nice. No, thanks for all you do. Thanks for all you do, my friends. Now, so let's take a leaf out of John's book. Let's be more like John, and even if you're going to drive to Ukraine, so let's look with our communities. So I know for sure every community has volunteering opportunities and needs. It's more people's needs.
Yeah,
that's, I guess, I frame it from. And then the opportunities are there for us to help.
Yeah, big or small, just and whatever your motives and whatever it is, just do something. Yeah, it's a cool thing to do.
For sure. I hope my friends will connect with you. If anyone wants to connect with John, if you struggle because of LinkedIn's levels of connections, first level, second level, and all that hoo-ha, right? Just DM me. I'll connect you with John in a group chat. Easiest way to start a conversation, and then you can take it from there, right?
It's not difficult to find somebody called John Fuggles. It's not like there's many of us, is it?
There could be quite a few of them. You never know.
Yeah, there is only one on LinkedIn, I'm reliably informed.
Excellent. Well, that's a good thing, right? So, but then still, LinkedIn has its funny ways. I say, you have to be within a certain level of connections, right? Someone that's not within 3 levels of connections. So they don't your first level, second level, third level. It's hard to they can't even send a connection request because LinkedIn's like you don't know them at all.
Okay.
So it's who you know, and then your friends, blah blah. That's how LinkedIn really works. Okay. So let's say if you struggle, I'll connect you quite happily. So I'm connected to most of you, and also to John. So that we can do that quite easily. But John, so I suppose your event on Thursday.
Yeah, so we're doing a black tie fundraising dinner. We got 3 speakers, and then there'll be an auction at the end. And the three speakers are, one is ex-military who, until a month ago, was about 2 kilometers from the front line in Pokrovsk. He is a journalist now, a very well-regarded journalist, so he was there doing some research. So he's going to tell us about what it's like living on the front line. So not the soldiers, but the people living there. We've got a chap called Guy who is going to talk about what it's like to go to sleep every night knowing that there are drones flying overhead. And then we've got a retired military lieutenant who is actually a priest. So he was he was a padre in the Ukrainian army. So he's going to talk about, again, just the ordinary people. We're not. None of these are talking about the military. This is just ordinary people. What it's like to live in that country, and how he's spent his every working day when he was in the army before he retired, sort of getting people safely away from the front line, driving military-driven convoys but full of civilians. So those are people going to be speaking, and then we have as I say, an auction as well. So and every single penny we raise is for Help for Ukraine. So it's all going to the same cause.
Excellent. And the auction sounds interesting. But you have to find the Spurs players' shirts for me to come along.
I haven't got a Spurs players shirt. I don't think they have any Ukrainian footballers. But I was at the stadium the other day giving a presentation. If that counts, I'm not sure it does.
Really? That counts. That counts. Of course, that counts, right? Okay. So I wasn't a season ticket holder until we moved. So
okay. But if they recruit a Ukrainian player, let me know and I'll get you a shirt.
I'll definitely. I'll say that's a promise. So the other thing I'll ask of you, if you do this black tie event again, give me a chance to come and speak, John, please. Okay. I'll pay to come and speak. So but I love what you do, right? And I genuinely say, if I can inspire anyone, of course, I think that's probably the next step, right? Eventually, this war will end, and we're going to have to support Ukrainian kids to find themselves, find their place again, right? That's another whole mission.
Yeah, I mean, after the war ends, and it will end, but I don't even think we're halfway yet. I think, and that's just an opinion. So don't anyone.
I pray we are. That's what I say.
Yeah, I think there's going to be huge. The country is going to have huge problems. There's going to be a lot of children without parents. There's going to be a lot of children, that are going to be affected by it. Huge amounts of mainly men, but not all men. A lot of women as well are going to have significant mental issues to address. And a lot of the people that left Ukraine to come to other countries, and fundamentally they are women with children. And there's a lot that aren't, but the vast majority of women with children, they're going to have nothing to go back to. And when I say nothing, the town they lived in doesn't exist anymore. The village they lived in doesn't exist anymore. The children have spent 4 or 5 years, at formative period of their life, learning another language. They're still keeping Ukrainian as a language and keeping it alive, but their base language is now different. And they've lost nothing. They've lost their partner, they've lost the town, the village, they've lost the school, they've lost everything. What's the incentive for them to go back? It's going to be a long, long, long journey after the war is over.
Yeah, so the way I'm looking at it, we have a lot of trauma here in the UK, and we're a stable country in that sense. We continue to, as you're saying. Whereas in a place like Ukraine, it doesn't even bear thinking about the trauma that the kids have seen. How does a nation overcome that? I mean, we have these artillery shells. I'll send you a link to a video afterwards. So these children, they're in a school, and they take these artillery shell casings, so the big round tubes, metal tubes, and they paint them, and they're beautiful. They really are beautiful. But it's part of their therapy of how can we take something that is so dramatic, that it's clearly linked to their childhood, and make something beautiful, and in the process help what's happening in their country. So we have those. We take those to the dinners and we auction them off.
but it's watching the children, sort of, doing something good out of something that fundamentally is designed to be quite bad.
For sure. Look, that's when let's concentrate on the here and now. So, your ambulances and your volunteering, your program for people to volunteer to help for Ukraine is where we need to focus on for now, right?
Yeah, and volunteering is, suppliers. If there's people out there who can supply stuff we need, we'll talk to you.
Yes, and if you want to donate, you're more than welcome to do so. So do connect with John. Say, John, I'll thank you again. Say, can I connect with my friends? Get to meet them, get to know who they are. I told you this is the job of what we do. Events and introduces you to my audience. After that, it's building those relationships. But I thank everyone that's joined us, and I thank you so much, Mike, so Odelia, Tolu, and many more people. Lisa, so Isaac, say Irina, so there's many more amazing people, and of course the amazing Zara as well. So thank you for spending your time with us, Mike. You're the legend, whether you like it or not. The humble British guy, but you're still a legend, right? Thank you so much for giving us your time. And for the work you do. I mean that sincerely. It takes someone special. It does take someone special to do what you do and carry on doing it. And of course, to be here to share the message as well.
Thank you so much.
Look, I hope your Thursday event goes really well. And there's another one. Call me for sure, right? Now
we'll
we're friends.
Another one we'll do another one in the new year for sure.
Superb. So, and I do want to leave us with Mike's amazing call to action. He said, "Be the change you seek in others. Don't try, just do." Right, and that's a call for all of us, my friends.
Yeah.
Look, thank you so much, Mike. You too. Thank you so much. You too, John. So enjoy your evening. We have many more events coming up. So there's at least 2 tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
I'll invite you all as I always do.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Every single moment is a new beat to your drama. She's success with Global.Media.com and celebrating with or without champagne or rum. She's success with Global.Media.com.